has to be 5 stars. And I can't emphasize to you enough how much this book was not for me. It was so gross, but like in the best way. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be starting on a very exciting reading vlog where I'm going to be attempting to read 7 horror novellas within 48 hours. I actually asked for some recommendations for some horror novellas on my Instagram stories because I wasn't sure which books I wanted to include in this video, and y'all really came through on the recommendations, so thank you for that. One of the first things I knew I wanted to read for this video is an arc of this book that I have on my Kindle that's called My Name Isn't Paul, and this is one that's going to be publishing in the month of November. I actually don't know too much about this one other than that it's described as like cosmic horror. I also knew that I really wanted to read Elegy for the Undead in this video, and this is one that I was able to get as an audiobook from my library, and this is another one that I don't know too much about it. I've actually just heard that it's described as like a queer romance that takes place during a zombie apocalypse. I'm also going to be reading the book called Thrum, and this one is available on Kindle Unlimited for me to read. Thrum is a book that I also went into knowing nothing about. I just know that it's a sci-fi horror book about a woman who wakes up in space, and I mainly wanted to read this one because my best friend Brittany just read it and she was telling me that it's totally bonkers and wild, so I definitely wanted to add it to my TBR for this video. And then also on Kindle Unlimited, I was able to get the book We All Rot Eventually by Mia Ballard, and Mia Ballard is an author that I have still not yet read from. I feel like she's becoming more and more popular in like the horror book space, so I thought I would give this one a shot because since it's a novella, it's only like less than 100 pages and it's on Kindle Unlimited, so I thought why not give it a go. I also was able to get the audiobook for Goddess of Filth by V. Castro checked out from my library. This is another horror novella that I've been hearing about for years and I've just never gotten around to it. This one was actually recommended a lot on the Instagram post, by the way, so I decided to add it to the TBR. I also was able to get the ebook checked out from my library for the book Tantrum, and this one is a new horror novella. I think this one's on the lengthier side. It's about like 190 pages, and this is one that I don't know too much about either. I think it involves like some motherhood and like parent type of horror. And then lastly, the 7th book that I'm going to read for this video is this one called Pocketknife Kitty by Shannon Riley. This was the only one that I was able to get a physical copy of, and this is one that I picked up because it got recommended on that Instagram post that I shared. I haven't really heard anybody talking about this book besides my friend Kayla over from Books and Lala. I think she rated this book pretty high, but otherwise like I haven't really heard anybody talking about this one, so I jumped into this without knowing a single thing about it. Like I don't know anything about this. If you like a video concept like this, I have actually done this kind of a video in the past where I read 6 horror novellas within 48 hours. I think I did it back in the year of like 2022 or something like that, so I will have the previous time linked down below if you want to see another vlog kind of similar to this one. And before we do jump into the vlog, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website. You can start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system. You can choose from professionally curated layout and styling options. You know, I would like to think that I'm a pretty tech-savvy person, but website design specifically is something that I have no idea about. I have no idea how to do any of it. Even I thought that Squarespace made it so easy to get started, and I loved how they had so many fun different options. You can sell your products and services with an online store, whether you sell physical goods, digital content, or services. Squarespace has all the tools you need to start selling online. I love that you can create your own online aesthetic with dozens of modern options, and then you can connect social media accounts in a few clicks to extend your brand's footprint. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/gabbyreads to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get into the reading vlog. Okay, hi, I'm here with the first update for this vlog. I ended up starting on it a little bit early. I mean, my original plan was that I wanted to do this vlog within like 48 hours and try to read as many as I can, but I decided to start a little bit early because I do have the audiobook checked out for Elegy for the Undead, and it was gonna be due so soon to the library, so I was like, okay, I need to get this done today. And you know, I needed an audiobook today while I was like out running errands, because today, as I'm filming this, it's Sunday right now, and we're actually gonna be hosting my sister's bridal shower here at the house later tonight. So this morning I had a bunch of errands that I needed to do. Like I needed to go out and pick up some mochi nut donuts because mochi nut is like my sister's favorite and she's not really a big cake person. So we wanted to get the mochi nut donuts for her for tonight's bridal shower. I mean, it's gonna be a very laid back bridal shower, but I had to pick up those. I also ended up swinging by like Bath and Body Works because I wanted to pick up some of their fall scented soaps, you know, because it's just that time of year now. But anyway, while I was out and about this morning, I ended up listening to the entirety of Elegy for the Undead on audio. And this story was really like beautiful and kind of tragic and not really what I was expecting it to be, but also like everything I was expecting it to be. Because all I had heard about this book is that it's kind of like a romance between these two men, but it's taking place during the zombie apocalypse. And that's pretty much exactly what this story is. We're following these two guys named Jude and Lyle. And at the start of this book, they are newlyweds when the zombie apocalypse, you know, kind of breaks out and everything goes crazy. But what I really like about this story is that it's not only taking place in the present day. We do get a lot of like flashback chapters to like 7 years ago and like 6 years ago. We get to see all of these moments, like how they met in the first place and how they fell in love. Like we really get to see that story. You know, I'm honestly kind of surprised that this one is categorized as a horror book because I would say this feels a little bit more like romance or even like literary fiction in a way. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the second half of this book really deals with the zombie apocalypse and like there are some scenes that are very horrific, but for the most part, like this one didn't really feel like a horror book to me. It definitely felt a little bit more emotional and like a heartfelt romance between these characters. And I feel like this author did a really good job with these characters because I feel like this is the kind of story that feels a lot more character driven than like plot driven. And I do think that the horror and like the zombie apocalypse really takes a backseat to, you know, the story about these two men falling in love and like wanting to be there for each other. I also think that this book was kind of written in a way as like a metaphor for like what it's like to love someone who has a terminal illness and like you know that they might meet their end very soon and like how to grasp that and how to deal with that. And I think that's what plays on the emotions in this book so much. I mean, the fact that this book is so short, right? It's only like 180 pages and yet this author packs so much emotion into this small book. You know, I don't often read books that are about like zombies or like a zombie apocalypse because it's not one of my favorite subgenres of horror. Like I don't mind it, but it's not like my top favorite. But this has got to be like one of the better zombie apocalypse fiction books that I've ever read. Like I really liked this and I kind of enjoyed how it was a lot more about the characters and their romance as opposed to like just the zombie apocalypse and the insanity of it all. But I do think if you go into this wanting to read about a zombie apocalypse, I also think you wouldn't be disappointed because those things are definitely described in a way that feels very real and scary, and you kind of get to see like those first moments as the apocalypse is like breaking out and like their lives change forever. So I do think if you read this for the zombie thing, you're not going to be disappointed, even though this definitely feels like it's more about the characters than the zombie apocalypse itself. I'm really impressed by this. I really liked it. I don't know, I was torn the entire time I was listening to this today whether I was feeling like it was going to be more of a 3-star or more of a 4-star. So I think I'm going to settle on like a 3.5. Like that feels like the right rating for me. The writing is like really gripping you right away and like the writing is so beautiful and I did get really attached to these characters almost instantly. I've never read anything from this author before, so I'm definitely going to be checking out their books in the future because I really like this a lot. So we're starting off the vlog on such a high note. That's amazing. I'm so glad that I read this one first. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, tonight, like I mentioned, we're going to be having my sister's bridal shower, so I'm not going to have any more time to read tonight. But tomorrow I will be kicking off this vlog officially and getting started on all of these horror novellas, and I can't wait. Hello, good afternoon. It's about 1 o'clock on the next day. Last night ended up being such a good night, you know, because we had my sister's bridal shower. Literally last night was like one of the best nights that I've had in a long time. So like that was amazing. I've just been sitting here on the couch and I read the entirety of this book, Thrum. And I decided to start with this one today because this one is the sci-fi horror novella that I've just been so curious about because my friend Brittany recommended me this one and said that it's like crazy and it's best to jump into without really knowing anything at all, which I would definitely agree with. Like I think that this book, even the description of the book, it kind of reveals a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to keep my synopsis of it to you very vague. But in this story, we're following this woman who wakes up on her spaceship and like her entire crew is dead. It actually kind of starts almost exactly the same way as like Project Hail Mary. It kind of starts exactly the same way where like both of these characters are waking up and they're struggling to remember things, but they know that they are like alone in space on their ship and they're trying to figure out like what they're gonna do. And so our main character in this book, she's kind of struggling with like feeling alone, feeling isolated. She's panicking a little bit and it seems like there's something that happened to her ship, and she can't figure out what could have caused this, because typically if like a meteor or if something like hit it, then it would have like a different cut so that it would look like it was an accident or something. But the thing that's wrong with her ship, it looks like it was cut by like something that was maybe human, maybe like something else, but like it looks like something intentionally harmed her ship. And so that's kind of where the horror elements start to come into this book. And let me tell you, this book was absolutely fascinating. Like, this was nothing like I was expecting it to be. There's actually another genre even included in this book that I was not expecting, and I would recommend not really looking into it on Goodreads, because I feel like the Goodreads synopsis reveals way too much about the story. And because it is, you know, such a short story, I think it's fun to go into this not knowing too much about it, because this plot was so unique and like so interesting. You know, I talk about this all the time, but like I love books like this that are kind of like sci-fi-ish type of stuff that takes place in space, where it's like it's not too fantasy, but it's definitely like sci-fi. That's one of my favorite kinds of things. And like I love reading about characters who are like stranded in space. I think that's a very fun concept. I feel like this character is definitely one of those like unreliable narrators in a way, because a lot of the times like you don't know if what she's seeing is real. You don't know if she's like hallucinating. You don't know if you can trust her perspective. But I also think as a main character, like at some points in this story, she did kind of frustrate me, because I just thought she was being a little bit like naive at times, or like lacking some common sense, where I'm like, why would you immediately buy into that? You know what I mean? Like I wanted her to be a little bit more skeptical about things, but I also think maybe this author's trying to have some kind of commentary about how like when you're stranded in space and you're literally that alone, I mean, maybe it would mess with like your perception of reality, and like it would make you more trusting when normally you wouldn't be. So like I do have to give her a little bit of credit there. Like I don't know what it would be like to be that lonely in space. And there were two different things in the plot that kind of surprised me at the end, that I was like, oh shit, like I didn't see that coming. Then I also think the ending of this book for me was a little bit unsatisfying, because I almost never say this about novellas, but I kind of wished this was a little bit longer. Like I wish we had maybe 30 to 50 pages at the end of this to kind of explain more things, because I feel like the ending of this story just kind of leaves you with a lot of questions. Like I have so many more questions. And like maybe that's the point, is like I'm supposed to be kind of like left in the dark about these things, but I selfishly want to know more. I do see what the author was trying to do with the ending, and like in a way I can respect it, you know? I personally just thought the ending was like unsatisfying in a way that like it made me want to lower my rating. God, I don't know what I want to rate this, because I feel like the entire time I was reading it, I was kind of going back and forth between like 3 stars and 4 stars. So maybe this is going to be like another situation where it's like about a 3.5 for me. I do think this is going to be one though that I actually think about a lot, because I think the concept for this book is really cool and really unique. And I think if you typically like kind of like sci-fi horror, then this is a must, especially because it's so short and you could easily get through it in like an hour or two. So that was a fun time. I'm really glad that I decided to read this one first today. I don't know which one I plan to read next, because the only other one that I have on audio is Goddess of Filth, but I kind of want to save the audiobook for like a little bit later today, because I'm thinking later this afternoon I'll probably like go to the gym, or maybe try to take a walk, or like do some kind of physical activity. So I might try to save the audiobook for later. So right now I kind of just want to like sit on this couch for the next like hour to the next like hour and a half and just keep reading. So I might actually start on My Name Isn't Paul. I think that one's calling my name next. And then if I do happen to go to the gym in like the next hour or so, then I will also be starting on Goddess of Filth. Those are my plans for now. And you know, it's just been so nice and so cozy to wake up on this September day, because it's actually like really cloudy and really like gloomy out, and it's not too hot. It's like 70 degrees. And I just like lit some candles in here, and I have the leftover mochi donuts from yesterday. I also just made my little like pumpkin spice coffee, and I am just like truly living my fall life and like my fall dreams. I'm hoping that My Name Isn't Paul is a good one. I have not been hearing the best reviews about this book, so I am a little bit nervous, but I'm also very excited to read this one, mostly because of the cover. Like I think the cover is like one of the most stunning book covers that I've ever seen. Like I just love it. But then also because I think this book might involve like doppelgangers or something, and like that's one of my top favorite things to read in horror. So like let's hope this one goes well. Okay, hello. It is now nearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I just pulled up at the gym and I ended up finishing reading My Name Isn't Paul. And like, holy shit, when I tell you that in my opinion, this book is bad. Like, it's really not good. And this book was so bad that I want to give it 1 star. Like, I did not find any redeemable qualities about this and I can't emphasize to you enough how much this book was not for me. And I know you're probably thinking like, well then why didn't you just DNF it? Because I was really not liking it like right off the bat. I was like, oh god, like this writing style. Like, I just really didn't like the writing in this at all, but I was like, you know what? It's only like 119 pages and it was something I was able to finish reading within like an hour 20 minutes. And because I got the ARC copy, you know, because this book doesn't come out until November, I was like, okay, I might as well finish it. But like, oh my god, this book was not good. You know, I was excited about this one because I thought it was going to be about doppelgangers and like it kind of is, but like basically they call themselves mirror people. I mean, literally one of the first lines in the book says, all I can say is I'm a bug. I'm a parasitic wasp thing. I think. Fuck. I hardly even know. Like, that's a direct quote from the book. So like, I don't even think this thing knows exactly what it is, but it takes place in the 90s and it starts with saying, I pretended to be human for the last 7 years and it finally caught up to me. And there's a little bit of like info dumping about how this whole thing works when it says we reproduce every 7 to 10 years. Every 7 to 10 years, you go into heat and lose your empathy until your eggs hatch into larvae, and then you're gonna go apeshit during that heat. And then they said, all I'm saying is pick out a meat parent for your larvae before you go into heat. Find a nice human with terminal cancer or some shit. It keeps the bloodshed down. Dude, the writing in this book was so not for me. It was so bizarre. I hated the way that these like mirror people talked to each other. It was just kind of ridiculous. It almost felt like you were reading a parody or something where I'm like, are they really talking to each other in this way? I was also like, dude, if I have to read the phrase, I'm a fucking bug, one more time, it was just so obnoxious. Like the amount of times this character will be like, I'm not a fucking bug, I'm a skin bag, or like referring to his meat costume as a skin bag. I also just think the writing in this wasn't very good for so many different reasons, but one of the reasons is because a lot of the explanation for like how this works with these mirror people is done through like dialogue and conversations between the mirror people, which is so weird because like they should know how it works. So it feels like it's just like they're having a conversation about it being like, this is how it works, to like explain it to the reader in a way that just felt very juvenile because I'm like, this doesn't feel like a real conversation. I was getting really bored towards the end and I started skimming and I was highlighting every time I saw the phrase, we're just fucking bugs. Or like, even if we are just fucking bugs in the end. There were literally so many times that the phrase fucking bugs was in this book. It was ridiculous. And I think I just have to give this book 1 star because I think the writing was terrible. Like, I don't think the writing was very good, or at least it was not my kind of horror at all. The writing also did this thing where like there was a lot of parentheses around different phrases and it would just repeat it so much. And another thing I didn't like about this with the writing is that there was no chapters. I mean, this book is divided into 3 parts and I know it's like a shorter book because it's only 119 pages, but I hated the fact that there were no chapters. Like, do you see what I mean about the writing like this? How there's just like parentheses constantly in between what is happening? Like, that drove me nuts and it's constant in this book. So I have to give this book 1 star because I hated the writing, really didn't care for any of the characters. I did not care about the plot that was happening in this story either. It also involved like a road trip that I did not care about either. And the horror in this book wasn't even that descriptive, or like it didn't really do much for me horror-wise either. And that is such a bummer because obviously like this cover is absolutely stunning, like one of my favorite horror covers of this year, so like this really sucks. But anyway, I just rolled up at the gym and I'm excited because now I get to start on my audiobook, which is Goddess of Filth. So hopefully this one goes a lot better. I mean, it can only go up from here, right? Hi, it's 5 o'clock at night. I just got home from the gym and I ended up washing my hair right when I came home because I desperately needed to wash my hair. Also, I wanted to mention earlier, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about My Name Isn't Paul. Some parts of that book reminded me of walking practice in a way, so I just wanted to recommend this one instead because Walking Practice is a 5-star book for me and one of my favorites of the year, and it is also a horror novella. And like, I don't know, as I was reading My Name Isn't Paul, there were just some elements of the story that kind of reminded me of this one and I was like, I would recommend not to waste your time reading this book and just read this one instead, because not only was this book so much better in terms of like the horror, this book was just a lot more gruesome and a lot more gory anyway, but then this book also had a lot more social commentary packed into it, and it was just a much better reading experience, so I would definitely recommend this one instead. But anyway, I wanted to update this vlog because I just finished listening to the audiobook for Goddess of Filth. And you know, as I was starting this today, I thought the author V. Castro, I was like, that sounds so familiar, and then I realized I have actually read a full-length horror book from this author before. I read The Haunting of Alejandra, and I'm pretty sure that I gave this book 4 stars when I read it like maybe 2 years ago. And so I didn't realize that I had already read something by this author in the past, and Goddess of Filth is a book that I jumped into today without knowing anything about it. And I was a little bit nervous today jumping into this one because as I was reading it, I was like, oh no, because I realized that this one is actually about a possession. And I do talk about this pretty often, how like I don't always love possession in horror books. I mean, I still do read it, you know, from time to time because sometimes it does work for me, and I'm really happy to let you know that for the most part, it actually really did work for me in this particular story. So this novella is about like 160 pages, I want to say. We're following these young 5 Mexican teenage girls. And right at the start of this book, they are performing this seance kind of like as a joke, and then one of the girls, Fernanda, she starts acting like super freaky, like she starts speaking in this language that they don't understand, and she's like crawling on all fours and just being like creepy and scary. And so in a way, this is kind of like your typical kind of like possession story where like they're trying to figure out what's wrong with her and what's going on. But I feel like the reason why this one worked for me is not only because I loved the way that the female friendships were explored in this book. I mean, I always do talk about how I love a good like toxic female friendship or like a really interesting female friendship dynamic in books, and this definitely had that. But I also really liked this because I feel like this book had a lot of different social commentary packed into it that really worked for me. I mean, I ended up writing down some of the quotes because, you know, I was listening to this one on audio, but some of the quotes that I liked is when she said, "We were modern girls. We knew where Planned Parenthood was, at least the ones that remained open. It made me almost wish that I had been born without a womb so that no man would want me and no god would expect me to be leashed. The rest of me could be mine and mine alone." And I thought that that was so powerful because I feel like this book had a lot of good commentary about like religion and how sometimes people could like almost use the excuse of like she's acting crazy or like she must be possessed just because she's a young girl kind of like doing things that are seen as ungodly, or like because she's exploring her sexuality in a way that makes people uncomfortable. I feel like there was a lot of good quotes revolving around those types of things. I also really loved the quote when she said, "When you aren't white or you don't come from a place of privilege, the world needs a compelling, tangible reason to say you belong. Otherwise, you're just like the rest." And I loved that so much, and I loved that we were following these Mexican teenage girls. I loved hearing so much about like the culture, because there's a lot of very specific things that they talk about with like the Mexican culture with possessions, which is actually much like, you know, the other book from this author, because this book did the same thing. But also just like the writing in this book was so good. Like there was one quote that I had to write down because it almost made me like get teary-eyed when she said, "Look at how big the night sky is. That should be your ambition. The sky didn't end." It was just kind of beautiful. Like, I don't know, I loved it. And so this is probably my favorite book that I've read so far for this video, which I'm so happy about. I think it's probably like a solid 4 stars for me. And this is why I'm glad that I read it, because I don't always love stuff that's about possession, but the writing in this was just really good and I felt instantly connected to these teenage girls. And I do love horror like this that feels like a coming of age for a young teenage girl as she's like discovering things about herself, exploring her sexuality, and kind of like exploring how she fits into this society. And I feel like I haven't enjoyed a story about possession this much ever since I read My Best Friend's Exorcism. I mean, this is one of the only things that I can think to compare it to because, you know, this is one of the only other books I've enjoyed that has like an exorcism possession kind of a thing. So I think if you liked this book, you might enjoy Goddess of Filth. And I also think Goddess of Filth, it kind of reminded me of that book Jawbone that I also recently just read. But that's mostly, I think, because of like the young teenage girls and like their dynamics with their friendships, and also the talk about like coming of age and religion and like the Mexican culture. I feel like there's a lot of talk about both of these things in both of these books. So I think that's why they reminded me a lot of each other. But yeah, Goddess of Filth, what a lovely surprise. I'm so glad that I enjoyed this one. I feel like I'm making pretty good progress on this vlog because I was hoping to read like 3 books today and then 3 books tomorrow. And so far I'm on track. So tonight my dad is making burgers for dinner, which I'm really excited about. And then me and my mom need to catch up on Big Brother because we're behind on an episode. And then we're probably gonna watch more Gilmore Girls tonight. Okay, hi, it's the next morning. It's about 11 a.m. and I just pulled up at my local park because I thought I would do some reading in the park today. I have my copy of Pocketknife Kitty by Shannon Riley, and this is going to be the next thing that I read. I also thought it would be fun fun to try because I just got this Alani from the store a few days ago. This one's a cotton candy Alani, and this is like one of the only flavors I haven't tried yet. I mean, maybe that's not true. I think I've only tried maybe like 5 to 6 different Alani flavors so far. And I think so far, out of all of the flavors that I've tried, I think Witch's Brew is definitely my favorite. I just think that one has the best flavor. But then I also really do like the blue slush. I like the pink slush a lot, and I love the juicy peach is like one of my favorites. So let's give this one a try together. I hope this one isn't too sweet. Oh my god, it's juicy. Hey, what do we think it's gonna taste like? I'm excited. What if this is a new favorite? Okay, the cotton candy is like very sweet. In my opinion, this kind of has like a bubblegum flavor to it. I don't know, I used to get my teeth pulled all the time as a kid because none of my teeth would ever fall out by themselves. So I always had to go to the dentist as a kid, and they would put that funny gas on my face, and I would always request the bubblegum funny gas because it smelled the best. And dude, the smell of this is sending me back. It literally smells like the bubblegum funny gas that I used to put on my face as a kid. Yeah, I don't know. I don't love this. Like, that's my immediate reaction, is that it's not one of my top favorite flavors. I mean, it's not terrible. I definitely like this one a lot more than the orange one that I've tried. I'm just not the biggest fan of like the orange drinks. This one's not terrible. I'd probably give this like a 6 out of 10. I don't know. It's not my favorite. Anyway, let's go do some reading in the park. Okay, hi, it's 1 o'clock and I'm sitting back in my car and I just finished reading Pocketknife Kitty. And like, holy shit, this was 5 stars. Like, this has to be 5 stars. Oh my god, I am so freaked out right now. I was like literally sitting in the park with like children running by me and reading the most vile, disturbing shit. Like, my stomach was like flipping upside down. I was like, oh my god. This book was horrifying. This was actually like my worst nightmare, I think. And I don't even know how to pitch this book to you because I don't want to tell you anything about it because I feel like it's best to jump into this book without knowing anything. But if you have to know some things, we're following this young woman named Jamie, and she's 30 years old, and she walks into a bar one night and she meets this guy, and then from that night on, things start to go very bad for her. Like, very bad for her. This book has some of the most vile and like disgusting body horror type of stuff that I've read in a while. Like, I was just, it was so gross, but like in the best way. As soon as this one thing happened to her, I was like, fuck, oh my god, no. Because I could see where the story was going, and I was like, oh my god, that's horrifying. Like, what? And then as the story was progressing, I could see where the rest of the story was going. So I guess in a way, the story is a little bit predictable, but I was thinking to myself, like, if this thing happens, then like the book is 5 stars. And then that thing happened, and I was like, fuck yes, bitch. If I had to compare this book to anything, it would be the movie It Follows. I feel like there's actually like a lot of different similarities that you can draw from these two things, which is amazing because It Follows is like one of my favorite movies of all time. And in some ways, this book also reminded me a little bit of the movie Men, just in the way that it's like, you can literally never trust men. And I do think this book can definitely fall into the category of like female rage. I think it would fit well amongst those kinds of books. Oh my god, I just loved this. I mean, even after reading it, I have no idea why it's called Pocketknife Kitty. Like, unless I just completely missed something, or maybe like something went right over my head. But like, I don't know why it's called Pocketknife Kitty. I don't know what that has to do with the story, but I loved this. Oh my god, it was just so vile and gory and disgusting. And even though I could predict where some of the story was going, there were still enough surprises in here that had my like jaw on the floor. I mean, the fact that the dedication for this book says, "To the women who know to choose the bear." I mean, come on. I also really liked the creepiness that at the start of each one of these chapters, we get to see these kind of like email exchanges, and you're constantly trying to figure out like how the emails are connected to what's happening in the story. And I feel like that also really came together in a very interesting way at the end of this book. God, I just loved this so much. Like, I really think if you love the movie It Follows, then you need to read this. But just know that this is some like really intense like body horror, like body fluid fluids, like body things are happening on the body, okay? And it's disgusting. Also, I'm like actually really shocked because when I looked at this book on Goodreads, it only had 100 ratings, and I'm like, so nobody has read this. Like barely anybody has read this book, which is shocking because I do think that this book is really good, really interesting. I saw in the back of this book in the acknowledgements that this author was talking about a lot of her inspirations are Paul Tremblay, Eric LaRocca, Stephen King, which I was like, yeah, I can see the Eric LaRocca inspiration for sure. Like this almost kind of feels like something that Eric LaRocca could have written, and I mean that in the best way. Oh my god, I love this. Oh, it feels so good to find a new favorite. On the back of this book, it says that this one explores themes of sexual empowerment, revenge, and loneliness. And I would definitely agree. I think there is a lot of like sexual stuff in this book, which sometimes that really can bother me in horror books. But this one was done in a way that like I really didn't mind it, and it was also such an essential part of the story that it was very much needed. Anyway, I think I'm going to swing back to the house now. I think I'm going to start reading We All Rot Eventually on my Kindle next. And then later this afternoon, I do have reading sprints at 4 on my Patreon, but that's not for another like 3 hours. So I'm hoping that I can try to finish up another book before doing the sprints tonight. Okay, hello, it's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I wanted to update you because I just finished reading We All Rot Eventually by Mia Ballard. And this was my very first book from Mia Ballard, even though I technically do have 2 other books from her that are on my TBR. And I have heard from some people that We All Rot Eventually is like her worst book, but I do still feel kind of bad because I think I'm gonna give this book like 1 or 2 stars. I really did not like this one at all. And it kind of makes me nervous because this is my first book from her. So like, I don't know if this is like typical for her writing or if this is just like her worst book. I don't know. But I was really not a fan of this one. You know, this book is only about like 90 pages long, so it is a very short book. Something that I thought I would love about this is that it's actually taking place in 2005 and we're following this actress named Alexa Valentine, and she only cares about like getting famous. And the story's taking place in Los Angeles. And right at the start of this book, she's doing a lot of auditions, you know, like she's trying to make a name for herself. And I really liked the setting of this in the beginning. You know what's so funny is that my friend Brittany recently just read this book and she was saying how annoying the writing style was because she constantly has these similes like over and over and over again in the writing. I don't know if I would have picked up on this myself, but after Brittany mentioned it, I definitely noticed it and it got so annoying. Like for example, a chapter will start with "The streets smell like stale beer and car exhaust." And then the next chapter is "The morning smells like burnt coffee and car exhaust." And then there's even another one, "The set smells like burnt coffee and hairspray." Like the amount of times that she described something as smelling like gasoline or burnt coffee, it was excessive. So like the writing in general was like not my favorite in this book because the writing itself just like wasn't great. And I also want to point out that there were like a lot of typos and like a lot of misspelled things, a lot of grammatical errors, which sometimes it is pretty common in, you know, like self-published horror things. So I don't want to knock it too hard for that, but I did notice those things. But I think the main reason why this book didn't work for me is because this book felt so random, because this character starts acting in a way that's like so ridiculous and I just didn't buy it. And it just kind of was driving me nuts because I really didn't like her as a character, not because she was like unlikable or like untrustworthy really as a narrator, but because it was almost like she was trying too hard to be like edgy and like violent. And in my opinion, the moments of violence in this book just felt so random. Like I was just like, wait, what? I had to like reread a paragraph to like see what had just happened because I was like, why would she do that? Like it felt very unearned. And that's the thing with books like this when there's like shocking violence or like violence just for the sake of violence. I feel like sometimes those scenes have to be earned in a way. Like I don't know how to explain that, but they just felt so random. Like I was just following the story and I'm like, what is she doing now? Like what? Like why is she doing this? Especially in the second half, I was like, dude, what am I reading right now? Like what? And like, am I supposed to care about any of the things that are happening? Like some of the conversations this character would have would make me like roll my eyes because she'd like be on a date with a guy and just be like, have you ever eaten a person? And it's like she was just trying so hard to be like edgy and like quirky. Like I don't know, it was so strange to me. The very ending of this book, like I don't know if that was supposed to be like some big shocking reveal, but like it just really didn't work for me. And it left me with this feeling of like, well, what the fuck was the point? Like I don't know. I'm just so bummed because I really didn't like this. I mean, I guess if you've read any other books by Mia Ballard, you'll have to let me know if her other books are anything like this. If you've read all of them or like if her other books are better and like like worth picking up. I mean, I know some of her stuff I've heard leans a little bit more into the extreme horror thing, which is not really my thing, but this one didn't really read too much like extreme horror in my opinion. But I have heard that especially her book Shy Girl I've heard is pretty extreme, so that's why I haven't really picked it up yet. But now after reading this book, I'm like, damn dude, I don't know if this is the author for me. I really did not like this writing at all. So that is a freaking bummer. Oh my god, I cannot believe I had another book that I might be giving 1 star. I'm telling you, horror novellas can be so hit or miss for me, so that is unfortunate. But anyway, I have 1 horror novella left in this video. I'm gonna be reading Tantrum next. I think I'm going to go ahead and like straighten my hair because my hair feels a little bit crazy, and then in about an hour I have some Patreon reading sprints, so I'm probably gonna be trying to read this entire novella while I'm on sprints tonight. And like, oh my god, I hope we end on a positive note because I feel like this vlog has been a roller coaster because I found a new 5-star today and I read a potential 1 star. Like, wow, what a crazy day it's been. It is many hours later. I've been doing some reading sprints on Patreon and I just finished reading Tantrum. And you know, I saved the longest book for the very end because this book ended up being about like 190-ish pages. And I have such mixed feelings with this book. I was interested in reading this book because I do think the themes of this book are something that typically interest me, because this story is about this woman who has 3 children. She has 2 sons and then she has this daughter. And after she's had her daughter, she's starting to feel like she's afraid of her own daughter because her daughter is starting to do some like really creepy and really like violent things. She's only like, I want to say she's only like 13 weeks old at the start of this book, so she's like a literal baby. But this book has a lot of themes about like the horrors of like motherhood and parenthood in general, which, you know, in the past, like those are things that I've really enjoyed in fiction. I mean, like The Push is something that comes to mind as like one of my favorite books that has this kind of a subject. I also love Blood on the Tracks and like Bates Motel. Like these are themes that I do enjoy reading about. I just don't know if this one in particular really worked for me because even though the story itself is pretty short, it just felt like such a long, meandering, exhausting book to read, and most of this just felt so freaking depressing because our protagonist, like, not only is she like afraid of her own daughter, but she's also like afraid of herself. She also had like a really challenging childhood because she has a really complicated relationship with her own mother, and so there's just a lot of talk in general about parenthood and like the burdens of parenthood. This book is just reminding me all over again why I never want to have children. I mean, something that I really did enjoy about this book is the discussion about like, doesn't your parent shape your story for you? And how like any stories that you might have heard from your childhood, especially from your parents, those memories from your childhood might be skewed in a way because you're hearing about them from your parents. There was a really good quote and she said, "My mother told me what I was, so I was. Does it matter if I wasn't? And if I think my daughter is a monster, does that make her a monster? Will it make her into a monster? Maybe what I see in her is what I see in me and I'm the monster. Or maybe I was never the monster. Maybe my mother just told me that I was the monster." I just think there was a lot of really interesting kind of commentary about how like our parents shape us into who we are and shape us into like our own understanding of who we are. Like whatever our parents tell us we are is what we are, or what we think we are. I don't even know if that makes sense what I just said, but I think you know what I'm saying. So the commentary in this book was good, and some of the horror in this book was really good and like well done. It was really like horrific to read about certain things. I just think I was a little bit bored throughout the story because I feel like what this story is doing is a lot of, you know, like there's a lot of moments in the present day as this character is like navigating her life and feeling this fear of her daughter and not knowing who she can talk to about it. Then there's also a lot of flashbacks to like her childhood, and there's a lot of flashbacks to like her birthing moments when she's giving birth to this little girl, and just a lot of extra details that like I just didn't need all of that. And I really didn't feel that connected to these characters either. And then I also think, you know, this book has no chapters, which is kind of annoying, and I feel like it makes the reading experience feel even longer than the book actually is, but it is divided into 3 different parts. And by the time you get to part 3 of this book, like, oh my god, it's almost like hard to follow, like weird shit is happening. And this book gets weird in a way that like I didn't really love. I don't know, it was just so hard to like visualize and conceptualize the things that I was reading. Like I couldn't picture it. There was one moment though at the end that really did surprise me that I was like, wait, I feel like for rating this book, like I don't know what I want to rate this because I didn't dislike it. I also like listened to this a little bit on audio because while I was eating, I actually DoorDashed some yakisoba noodles to the house while I was on sprints. And I thought, you know, like while I'm eating, I was like, I might as well because I only had 1 hour of listening left on my Spotify. So I used my final hour to like listen to some of the audiobook while I was eating. And the audiobook was really good. Like the audiobook was well done. I just think the tone of this book overall is like so sad and so depressing and so bleak. It was just a lot. I don't know. This book was just a lot. I feel like I want to give this maybe like 2.5 stars, maybe 3 stars. I don't know. I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. It was just very mid for me. I feel like this is one that I'm probably gonna forget actually. It's just not a very memorable read for me. So I guess that completes this reading vlog where I read 7 horror novellas kind of within 48 hours. I know that I started a little bit early on that first book, but I am glad that I was able to fit all 7 books into this reading vlog. I know for sure my favorite thing that I read for this reading vlog was without a doubt Pocketknife Kitty, and in fact nothing could even come close to how much I love that one. So like that's exciting because that's the only book that I actually own a physical copy of, so it actually worked out perfect. But I would love to know if you've read any of these 7 horror novellas, then please do let me know your thoughts on them. And if you have any other horror novella recommendations, then please do leave them down in the comments below. I'm always looking for more horror novellas to read, especially like for readathons. I feel like horror novellas are perfect to read during any kind of readathon because they're just so easy to like knock off a prompt and just get it done. So please do let me know if you have any other recommendations. I will also have linked down below the last time that I made a video like this where I read like a bunch of horror novellas within 48 hours, and I will have linked down below the horror recommendations video that I made that was specifically for short horror novellas if you're looking for more books to read. I made an entire dedicated video talking about the short horror that I really love. So I'll have both of those videos linked down below if you want to check those out. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!